Moscow, Idaho, a classic American college town, a place where doors are often left unlocked, a place where a student's biggest worry is their next exam, a safe place. But on one freezing night in November 2022, the idyll was shattered. Inside a house on King Road, just a short walk from campus, a nightmare unfolded. It was just another Saturday night. 20-year-old Zana Kernodle attended a fraternity party with her boyfriend, Ethan Chapin. Up the street, roommates Kaylee Goncalves and Madison Mogan visited the Corner Club, a bar downtown. By 2 a.m., everyone was back at their shared off-campus home at 1122 King Road. The house had 3 floors. On the first floor, Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, the 2 surviving roommates, slept in their own separate rooms. Later discovered Dylan was on the second floor with Zana Kernodle, and her boyfriend Ethan Chapin were in Zana's room. On the third floor, Kaylee Goncalves and Madison Mogan, lifelong best friends, shared a bedroom. Later discovered Dylan was on the second floor. They talked, laughed, went to their rooms. At 4 a.m., Zana received a DoorDash food delivery. It was the last time she'd be seen alive. Downstairs, their roommate Dylan Mortensen began to hear strange noises above her. She opened her door once. Nothing. She opened it again. Still nothing. The third time, she saw something she would never forget. A man in black, mask over his face, walking past her, silent, intentional. He exited through the sliding glass door and vanished. Frozen with fear, Dylan locked herself in her room and texted the other roommate, Bethany Funk. The girls called out to their friends. No one responded. Eventually, Dylan saw Zana lying on the floor. She thought Zana might have passed out, but something wasn't right. Bethany and Dylan locked themselves in Bethany's room, trying to make sense of it all. They called friends for help. At 11:56 a.m., one of those friends found Ethan and Zana upstairs. They had no pulse. The police were called. The voice on the other end is shaking, saying something about a roommate passed out upstairs.
911 location of your emergency.
Something is happening. Something's happening in our house. We don't know what.
What is the address of the emergency? And tell me exactly what's going on.
One of the roommates has passed out, and she was drunk last night, and she's not waking up.
Okay.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night. Yeah.
The next morning, a crime scene was discovered that would launch this small town into the global headlines. 4 young, vibrant students brutally murdered in their sleep. Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, Kaylee Goncalves, and Zana Kernodle. What officers discovered inside that home would haunt them forever. Madison and Kaylee had been stabbed in the same room. Kaylee had over 20 stab wounds. Zana was stabbed more than 50 and had defensive wounds. She fought. There was no forced entry, no restraint, no sign of sexual assault. Whoever did this came in quietly and left just as silently.
Police in Moscow, Idaho, still do not have a suspect in the killings of 4 college students. They're now saying they cannot assure.
Moscow was in a state of panic. The local police, having never dealt with a murder case like this, struggled with the lack of evidence. For nearly 7 weeks, a mysterious killer was free. The fear was tangible, and the question echoed in every home. Would the killer strike again? Investigators sifted through hours upon hours of surveillance footage. They were looking for a needle in a haystack, asking for tips.
We are thankful for all the tips and leads the public has provided in Ethan, Zana, Kaylee, and Madison's murder investigation. No bit of information is too small, and every tip will be pursued. So far, this information has helped investigators build a picture of the areas of interest and the relationships these 4 had with each other and our community.
And then they found something, a ghost car, a white Hyundai Elantra, spotted near the house during the critical hours of the murder. It was seen arriving and seen speeding away. This wasn't a random visit. The footage showed the vehicle circling the block, stalking, waiting, preparing, and then it vanished.
the neighborhood several times, making 3 passes by that King Road home between 3:30 and 3:58 a.m., minutes before investigators say he entered the car seen leaving at a high rate of speed around 4:20 a.m., careening around the street.
It was the only lead they had. A nationwide hunt for a white Hyundai Elantra began. But with thousands of identical cars, how do you find the right one? Investigators cross-referenced data, vehicle registrations, owners in the area, and then one name surfaced. A name that was chillingly close to home. Just a 15-minute drive away, in Pullman, Washington, lived a student who owned a white Hyundai Elantra. But he wasn't just any student. His name was Bryan Kohberger, and he was a PhD student in criminology. To understand the horror, investigators had to understand the man, Bryan Christopher Kohberger. Who was he? He grew up in Pennsylvania. His high school friends described him as brilliant but socially awkward, quiet, an outsider. But behind the silence, there was turmoil. In his late teens, Kohberger reportedly struggled with drug addiction, specifically heroin. Several classmates and acquaintances from that time recalled his visible weight loss, mood swings, and a period of isolation. Eventually, he got clean, and when he did, a new obsession emerged: his body. He became intensely focused on fitness, eating habits, and personal discipline. He lost a significant amount of weight, started boxing, and talked openly about health and structure, sometimes to the point of fixation. Bryan was a loner, devoted to his studies. He wanted to understand the dark side of the human mind. He pursued psychology and then criminology. He didn't just study crime, he was obsessed with it. On Reddit, he asked chilling questions in forums for ex-convicts. What did you feel when you entered the house? How did you plan your escape? Was this innocent academic research or planning? The irony is staggering. The man studying how police catch killers was now the primary suspect in one. And when the FBI dug into his digital data, the picture became blood-curdling. Kohberger's cell phone was tracked in the area of the King Road house. Not once, not twice, but 12 times in the months leading up to the murders. He was stalking them. He was learning their routines. The victims weren't entirely random. They were a target chosen after careful and deliberate surveillance. It's possible that one of them was the initial focus, and the others were simply in the way. He was preparing, and on the night of the murders, his phone went dark. Digital silence, the clear sign of someone trying to cover their tracks. On the night of the murders, Kohberger entered the house through an unlocked door, armed. The presumed order of victims, inferred from the crime scene and evidence, suggests Kaylee Goncalves and Madison Mogen were the first victims. The hypothesis is that he focused on them for a personal reason or as an attempt to quickly silence those who could raise the alarm. Psychological experts point to 2 possibilities for the motive behind the excessive number of stab wounds: rage and punishment. The sheer number of stabs and the seemingly furious and uncontrolled style suggests a profound personal venting of rage, possibly tied to Kohberger's own feelings of rejection, anger, or social inadequacy. This was not just a killing, it was a psychological message. Absolute certainty of death. An individual obsessed with the perfect crime might stab repeatedly to ensure no chance of survival, and that his control over the situation is absolute. New surveillance footage emerged showing Kohberger just hours after the murders, casually trying to enter a store, calmly sipping from a bottle.
To Costco in Clarkston, Washington, with a bottled drink in his hand. He met a clerk who was standing at the door, because at Costco you of course have to show your membership.
His left hand was buried deep in his pocket. Was he hiding an injury sustained during the attack? But that wasn't the only appearance he made that day. Later, he was seen entering another grocery store.
The aisles at 12:49 p.m. He's there looking for something. Kohberger isn't in the store all that long, because at 12:56, he goes to the self-checkout, and remember, by this time, he started paying for everything in cash.
This time making purchases. He paid in cash, as if intentionally avoiding any digital trail. At one point, he even took a selfie. a casual moment just hours after 4 people were brutally murdered. He didn't panic. He didn't flee. He just went back to life. Still, he returned to class. He graded papers. He acted normal. But he made one mistake, one critical, fatal mistake. At the crime scene, next to the body of Madison Mogen, police found a military-style knife sheath. The killer, in the heat of the moment, in the haste of his escape, had left it behind. The most crucial element for any criminal operation is the meticulous planning of post-offense steps. How to ensure no remnants are left. How to exit the scene in a manner that guarantees an unshakable alibi. Every small error is liable to collapse the entire theory. The irony is twofold. The mistake he made directly contradicted his academic knowledge and his own self-research thesis. How could such an experienced individual, who analyzed the errors of other killers, make such a critical mistake? Some argue it was a mistake of overconfidence from someone who thought he was smarter than the police. Others view it as a subconscious signature of an ambitious killer, the urge to leave a piece of himself at the scene. On that sheath, the lab found a DNA sample, a single male profile. This was the physical link that tied the killer to that room. As the investigation tightened, Kohberger became nervous. He and his father began a 2,500-mile cross-country drive back to the family home in Pennsylvania. They were driving in a white Hyundai Elantra. They didn't know the FBI was on their tail. The fact that Kohberger lived in Pullman, Washington, a different state, but just a 15-minute drive from Moscow, Idaho, the crime scene, initially complicated the investigation, as it required extensive interstate coordination. It allowed him to reside in one community while committing the crime in a neighboring one, giving him a distorted sense of security. In Pennsylvania, investigators secretly collected DNA samples from trash discarded from Kohberger's parents' home. They sent it to the lab in Idaho, and it came back. It wasn't a direct match. The DNA from the trash was 99.9% probability of a first-degree relation. Matched the DNA on the knife sheath. The FBI moved quickly.
The Idaho quadruple murder was arrested early this morning on a fugitive.
On December 30th, 2022, Kohberger was arrested by the FBI and SWAT team during an early morning raid. The trial was set to be one of the biggest in Idaho history. The prosecution was seeking the death penalty. On May 17, 2023, a grand jury indicted him. When Kohberger appeared in court, he said nothing. He refused to enter a plea. The judge entered not guilty on his behalf. And then a stunning turn in July 2025. Bryan Kohberger pleaded guilty. He signed a plea deal, guilty on all counts. 4 consecutive life sentences, no death penalty, no right to appeal. Avoiding the death penalty in exchange for 4 consecutive life terms with no possibility of parole. Why the plea? Kohberger's shocking admission, despite knowing the physical DNA and circumstantial phone and car evidence was stacked against him, likely stemmed from the comprehensive evidence presented in one critical factor: his sister. During pretrial proceedings, the prosecution announced its intention to call Kohberger's sister as a witness. The widespread assumption is that his sister knew something about his drive back to Pennsylvania, his attempts to clean the car, or perhaps his changed behavior prior to the murder. Kohberger, who had successfully maintained a double life for so long, could not risk her testimony exposing the dark, premeditated side of the crime. The guilty plea allowed him to control the narrative, avoid the death penalty, and most importantly, prevent his sister from testifying, thereby shielding her from legal and emotional jeopardy. He will die in prison. But the biggest question of all remains unanswered. The question that his guilty plea prevented us from ever knowing: why? What drove a brilliant student who dedicated his life to understanding crime to commit such a monstrous one? Was it academic curiosity twisted into something lethal? Did he want to know what it felt like to commit the perfect murder? Bryan Kohberger hasn't spoken. He sits behind bars, his silence louder than any confession. His dark thesis wasn't written on paper. It was carved into the lives of 4 innocent students. And until he speaks, all that remains are unanswered questions and a pain that refuses to fade.